let's talk Batman. Let's talk a little bit of Batman, all right? So check this out, guys. This dude, who is this dude? This is Brandon Skelena, okay? And maybe you saw this yesterday. This was popping up all over the timeline. Brandon Skelena being looked at for the DCU Batman. And this was the quote, okay? This was the quote that everybody was sharing. It says right here, I think there's some awareness of me on some level, probably. I know there's a ways away from doing that. The little kid in me and the adult in me is like, this is cool. And so I had the reaction that I'm sure many of you had. I saw this blown up on the timeline and I thought to myself, is this another stupid piece of fake news that's being perpetrated by a bunch of headline readers that are literally not even reading the quote? Because the quote to me did not seem at all to indicate that this dude, like, this is crazy, right? So, however, if you go and actually read the article and read what was actually said, I think you can understand a little bit better of what's going on. So, here we go. We're on Screen Rant right here. It says, in an interview with Screen Rant's own Ash Crossan for his new film, Drop, Brandon Skelena was asked how, I'm just going to say his name like that forever, by the way, was asked how he feels about being one of the popular fan casting choices for Batman in the DCU. He elaborated on being asked about it by both fans and the press, and Skelena stressed that he embraces it, stating the following. I mean, for Batman, let's keep running with that. That's something I've wanted to do since I was a little kid, and I've never even talked about it. It just started happening, and I was like, this is so cool. And now, maybe, hopefully, it happens one day. I'd love to do it. It's literally a childhood dream to do something like that. Specifically, that character. If I were ever to do any type of thing in the superhero space, that's what it would be. Okay, high praise, really cool answer, but not necessarily giving us what we want. Let's keep going. Skelena was asked, or also asked, if he has had any calls with DC Studios about taking on the role of Batman in the DCU franchise. In response, Skelena said he thinks there is some awareness of the idea of him being a popular pick to play the next live-action Dark Knight. Now, this is what's really important. Screen Rant, and remember, this was Ash Crossan. So she says, has anyone, and then she made the phone call gesture. Okay? And then Brandon literally said, yeah. Okay? So, of course, he goes on to blurb and maybe, you know, kind of try to cushion it. But literally, like, we got to understand what happened here. She's like, has anybody, and he's like, yeah. That's why this story is, like, actually blowing up, which is so crazy because, like, the quote they used, which is right here, doesn't make sense without the context. I can't believe everybody just bought it. Anyway, here we go. He says, yeah, I think there's some awareness of me on some level, probably. But yeah, I know there are ways away from doing that. How would you know that? But yeah, obviously, the little kid in me, the adult in me is like, this is cool, and I have a bunch of ideas. Anyway, it'd be cool. But let's not move past the fact that he was literally asked if he got a call, and he said yeah. So, I don't know that this dude is actually going to be Batman, but I at least wanted to bring it up because there's so many people out there saying, and it is a confusing story, but there's like a lot of people saying it's fake news or it's like not going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. This would indicate to me that some people at DC Studios have reached out to this guy and have had discussions with him. And Gunn, like, we can't obviously trust what Gunn says or what DC says. They're lying all the time about these sort of things. And, like, I remember there was a time period where James Gunn came out and made some kind of statement about how the only people that knew anything that was going on in the DCU were he and Peter Safran. Nobody else knew anything. And yet we now know that he had already had a discussion with Jason Momoa. Jason Momoa posted the text messages and dated them, showing and proving that he had talked to Momoa about being Lobo. That's why Lobo did that one video and everybody was like, what the hell? And then we were all like, what the hell's going on? Aquaman 2's not even out yet. And Momo is excited about being Lobo. Wild times. But the point is, like, we can't trust what DC is saying. And so I think there's a very real chance that this guy has had discussions with people at DC. Maybe even James Gunn himself. You know? Now, look, I'm actually not familiar with this guy at all. Okay? I don't even know what he's really been in. Somebody said 1917 or whatever. I think he's done a show that was popular. I don't know what his voice sounds like. I don't know what his mannerisms are. Oh, 1923, right? I don't know this guy at all. I've literally don't think I've seen him in anything, but just off looks, off vibes. Yeah, I can see it. Now, obviously, I'm going to say what I always say, and that's that you have to get under a barbell. You have to get bigger. Period. And that's something that I really like about Alan Ritchson is like he's incredibly physical. Obviously, he's a fucking specimen. And I don't know that you need to be that jacked, but you do need to be physical. Bruce Wayne is like the peak of human performance in the physical sense. He's that guy. So I would like him to put on some muscle. Okay? However, yeah, like he's got the right look for a Bruce Wayne. I can imagine him clean shaven under the cowl. And in fact, guys, I did a little bit of art. You know, actually, I'll be honest. This was Benjamin, and Benjamin did some incredible Photoshop work so that we could see what he would actually look like as Batman. I'm going to pull it up for you right now. So on the podcast feed, you can't really see this, but it is a beautifully rendered, almost photorealistic version using photos of this actor to make him look like Batman. So I could totally see it. I think it would be great. And I do also, you know, want to mention that the very fact that this is happening and that these discussions are going on really does indicate it's not Pattinson. I mean, I know the Pattinson question and the DCU question has been an ongoing conversation. It is really starting to seem like, guys, it is really starting to seem like that Pattinson ain't going to be Batman in any DC universe really soon. Like, it's starting to seem like he's getting other gigs. He's going to star in Dune. They're going to put him in other stuff. I don't think... I mean, I think Matt Reeves' stuff might not be sticking around, you know? And I know there's a lot of complicated reasons why, but it just keeps getting delayed, and their main actors are doing other things. So it's, like, hard to imagine that he's actually going to stick around at this point. So, I don't know. We might be looking... we might be looking at a new DCU Batman, and maybe what we're at the very least seeing is what people are at DC are considering as they go out there and look at other actors for a Bruce Wayne. So wanted to bring that to your attention, and I'm sure maybe some of you guys have thoughts when we get into Q&A about that. I think he looks good as Batman. I would just prefer him to put on a little bit of size. And other than that, seems like a good pick for me. I would say this too. I could really see him and Corenswit hanging out together outside of their costumes and in their costumes. Because of course, like World's Finest, the relationship between Superman and Batman is a huge deal. But you also need those characters to be able to just stand side by side outside of their costumes and not look like that's part of the reason why the Richardson thing, as much as I want it, is difficult, because you put him next to Corenswet outside of their costumes and it's going to look hilarious. You know what I mean? So yeah, maybe this is the better move for that. I don't know. Would love to know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. And if you like this clip, smash a like on the actual video and subscribe to this channel. That way more of these clips get into your feed. I've also linked the full episode below if you want to check out the entire thing, including the Q&A we do with fans. You can also watch this show live. We do it live Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And you can also find all of my content, including the videos I put on my main YouTube channel, on the podcast feed.